Aslan, we need your help.
I know, but understand, the future of Narnia rests on your courage.
If it's a war Aslan wants, it's a war he shall get.
In numbers far greater than ours do not win a battle.
No, but I bet they help.
The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005. Analyses and explanations. Film overview and historical context. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005. Represents a significant moment in 2000s fantasy cinema, emerging in the wake of massive franchises like The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Directed by Andrew Adamson, whose background in animation, Shrek, informed the film's seamless blend of live-action and digital characters. This adaptation was a passion project decades in the making. C.S. Lewis himself had been wary of cinematic adaptations, fearing technological limitations would compromise the story's grandeur. However, his stepson and literary executor, Douglas Gresham, championed the film after witnessing advances in CGI, believing it could finally do justice to Aslan and the creatures of Narnia. Gresham insisted on maintaining the novel's specific Englishness and its World War II backdrop, which the filmmakers honored, using the real-world conflict as a powerful parallel to the battle in Narnia. This production was a major venture by Walden Media and Disney, filmed across evocative locations from New Zealand's landscapes to the ancient castles of Central Europe, grounding the fantasy in tangible reality. Plot summary: The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, follows the journey of the four Pevensie siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, evacuated from London during the Blitz to the sprawling country home of an eccentric professor. The film meticulously establishes their wartime anxieties and familial tensions, making the discovery of the magical wardrobe by the youngest, Lucy, a profound escape. Lucy finds the wintry world of Narnia and befriends a faun, Mr. Tumnus, who reveals the land is under the curse of the White Witch Jadis, who has decreed it to be always winter and never Christmas. The initial disbelief of her siblings is broken when Edmund follows Lucy into the wardrobe and, in a pivotal character moment, encounters the witch herself. Seduced by her false kindness, enchanted Turkish delight, and promises of power, Edmund aligns himself with her, setting in motion his betrayal. When all four children finally enter Narnia together, they are thrust into a prophetic destiny as the sons of Adam and daughters of Eve, foretold to end the witch's reign. Guided by the wise and benevolent lion Aslan, they must unite the scattered Narnians. Edmund's betrayal comes to a head, leading to the film's emotional and theological core. Aslan's voluntary sacrifice on the stone table to pay the traitor's debt, a death that is miraculously reversed by a deeper magic from before the dawn of time. The resurrected Aslan leads the children and the Narnian army in a final, climactic battle against the witch's forces, securing victory and crowning the four Pevensies as the rightful kings and queens of Narnia. Central themes and symbolism. Analyses and explanations of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, must begin with its most famous layer, Christian allegory. Aslan is a clear Christ figure, a divine king who willingly offers himself as a substitute for Edmund's sin betrayal, is killed on a stone table, a clear parallel to an altar or crucifix, and resurrects in a glorious, life-affirming dawn. The White Witch embodies satanic evil, a tempter who uses lies, temptation, the Turkish delight representing all-consuming sin, and fear to enforce her tyrannical rule. Her eternal winter symbolizes a world frozen in spiritual death, devoid of grace, hope, or growth. However, the film's genius lies in presenting these elements as an organic part of the fantasy narrative, allowing the spiritual resonance to feel earned rather than didactic. Beyond the allegory, the film powerfully explores themes of familial loyalty and betrayal, the painful transition from childhood innocence to adult responsibility, and the nature of true courage, which is often shown to be an act of faith in the face of overwhelming fear. Good versus evil and sacrifice. The core narrative conflict in the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, is a classic battle between the forces of good, led by Aslan, and the forces of evil, commanded by the White Witch. This is not merely a physical conflict, but a moral and spiritual one. The witch's power is rooted in a rigid, legalistic magic, the deep magic from the dawn of time, that gives her the right to a traitor's blood. Aslan's power, however, operates on a higher law, the deeper magic from before the dawn of time, which embodies grace, redemption, and self-sacrificial love. The entire plot turns on this concept of substitutionary atonement. Aslan's death is not a defeat, but a strategic victory that shatters the witch's legal claim and breaks her fundamental power. This theme elevates the story from a simple adventure to a mythic exploration of how love and sacrifice can conquer even the most entrenched evil. Faith, doubt, and coming of age. Each Pevensie child undergoes a distinct coming-of-age journey that forms the emotional backbone of the Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005. Lucy's arc is one of steadfast faith and pure-hearted belief. She never wavers in her conviction about Narnia, and her openness is her greatest strength. Edmund's journey is the most dramatic, an arc of fallenness and redemption. His initial resentment, jealousy, and greed make him vulnerable to the witch's manipulation, and his betrayal forces him to confront the consequences of his actions. His rescue by Aslan's sacrifice teaches him humility, loyalty, and the true cost of forgiveness. Peter and Susan represent the bridge between childhood wonder and adult burden. Susan, the voice of caution and rationality, must learn to trust in things beyond logic. Peter's journey is from reluctant protector to courageous high king. He must overcome his self-doubt and fear of failure to lead. Their collective transformation from displaced children in a war-torn world to majestic rulers in a reborn kingdom is the ultimate coming-of-age fantasy. Character analysis, Aslan. In the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, Aslan is far more than a magical talking animal. He is the theological and moral center of the story. Voiced with immense gravitas and warmth by Liam Neeson, Aslan embodies a paradoxical blend of terrifying power and gentle compassion. He is the creator and true king of Narnia, a figure of immense authority who commands instant reverence. His symbolism as a Christ figure is unmistakable, yet the film ensures he feels integral to Narnia's own mythology. His decision to die for Edmund is portrayed not as a passive acceptance, but as a sovereign, deliberate choice, making his resurrection all the more triumphant. He represents the idea that true power is ultimately expressed through mercy and sacrificial love, not mere force. Character analysis, The White Witch. The White Witch, Jadis, portrayed with chilling elegance by Tilda Swinton, is a masterclass in portraying evil as both alluring and utterly terrifying in the Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005. She represents the corrupting nature of absolute power, ruling through fear, deception, and a cruel, legalistic tyranny. Her eternal winter is an external manifestation of her frozen, lifeless soul. She can create nothing, only distort and control. As a symbol, she embodies temptation, specifically to Edmund, the emptiness of selfish ambition, and a satanic challenge to the rightful order. Swinton's performance avoids cartoonish villainy, instead presenting a cold, intellectual, and deeply prideful being whose downfall is ultimately her inability to comprehend concepts like love, sacrifice, or grace. Character analysis, The Pevensie siblings. The heart of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, lies in the dynamic between the four siblings. Lucy Georgie Henley is the emotional anchor. Her innocence and courage make her the first believer and the one with the purest connection to Narnia's magic. Edmund, Skander Keynes, undergoes the most complex transformation. His initial portrayal is sympathetic in his insecurity, making his betrayal believable and his redemption arc deeply moving. Peter, William Moseley, carries the weight of leadership. His journey from a boy hesitant to fight to a king leading a charge is the film's classic hero's journey. Susan, Anna Popplewell, provides a necessary counterpoint. Her practicality and skepticism ground the group, and her evolution into the gracious Queen Susan the Gentle involves learning to balance reason with belief. Their familial bond, strained and tested, is ultimately what makes them effective rulers. Character analysis, Mr. Tumnus and supporting figures. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, uses its supporting characters to flesh out the moral landscape of Narnia. Mr. Tumnus, James McAvoy, is crucial as the first Narnian Lucy meets. He represents the good people living under oppression, torn between fear, obeying the witch, and conscience, protecting an innocent. His repentance sets the moral tone. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver provide warmth, humor, and exposition, acting as vital guides who connect the children to the prophecy and to Aslan. They symbolize the resilient, hopeful heart of the Narnian resistance. Even smaller figures like the fox, who bravely lies to the witch's wolves to protect the children, show the cost and courage of defiance in a tyrannical state. Production and adaptation analysis. Director Andrew Adamson's approach to the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, skillfully balanced fidelity to the source material with necessary cinematic expansion. The opening sequence depicting the London Blitz is a significant addition not in the novel. It powerfully establishes the children's trauma, Peter's protective instinct, and Edmund's resentment, giving their later actions deeper motivation. The production leveraged the expertise of Weta Workshop, blending practical creature effects with groundbreaking CGI for Aslan, creating a lion that felt both authentically animalistic and majestically intelligent. The design of the White Witch's castle, the frozen waterfalls, and the spring thaw are visual highlights that translate Lewis's descriptions into stunning imagery. Harry Gregson Williams' score expertly weaves traditional English melodies with epic fantasy themes and choral elements, underscoring the story's spiritual dimension. Reception and legacy. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005, was a resounding commercial and critical success, proving that a new fantasy franchise could thrive in the post-Lord of the Rings landscape. It was praised for its respectful adaptation, emotional weight, and appeal to both children and adults. Its success spawned 2 sequels, though the subsequent films did not replicate its massive cultural impact. The film's lasting legacy is its role in introducing Narnia to a 21st-century audience, cementing certain visual iconography, like the design of Aslan and the Witch, in the popular imagination. It stands as a defining family fantasy epic of its era, often discussed for its clear allegorical themes and its heartfelt portrayal of childhood courage and faith. The film remains a testament to the enduring power of Lewis's story, capturing its sense of wonder, its deep moral convictions, and its ultimate hope in the triumph of light over darkness. This cinematic adaptation masterfully translates the core spiritual allegory into a universal language of imagery and emotion. The stone table sequence stands as a profound cinematic moment of sacrificial love, devoid of explicit doctrine yet overflowing with symbolic power. Audiences instinctively understand the weight of Aslan's choice, a testament to the film's effective visual storytelling. This careful balancing act allows the narrative to resonate on multiple levels, from a simple fairy tale to a deeply meaningful parable. A pivotal theme explored with great nuance is the nature of true kingship and leadership as contrasted with tyranny. Peter's journey from a hesitant older brother to the valiant High King Peter the Magnificent is a central arc of growth. His authority is earned through humility, courage, and a willingness to protect others, fundamentally opposed to the witch's rule of fear. The coronation at Cair Paravel is not merely a reward, but a recognition of the sovereign qualities they have cultivated within themselves. The production design plays an indispensable role in constructing the film's compelling moral and physical atmosphere. The witch's palace, all sharp glacial edges and bleak expanses, visually communicates her cold, lifeless soul. Conversely, Aslan's camp at the stone table is bathed in warmer light, suggestive of community and nascent hope. The transformation of Narnia from endless winter into a vibrant spring serves as the most powerful visual metaphor for the return of life, grace, and joy. Lucy Pevensie remains the emotional and moral compass of the entire narrative, her unwavering faith serving as the key that unlocks the adventure. Her first encounter with Mr. Tumnus establishes the film's tone of wonder mingled with peril. Significantly, her belief never falters, even when met with skepticism from her siblings. This childlike faith is portrayed not as naivety, but as a profound strength that sees truth where others see impossibility. Edmund's character arc provides the story's most intricate study of temptation, consequence, and redemption. His initial betrayal stems from recognizably human flaws: resentment, envy, and a craving for status and sensory gratification. The Turkish delight becomes a potent symbol of addictive desire that blinds him to danger. His subsequent humiliation and enslavement by the witch form a necessary crucible for his genuine repentance and transformation. Susan's role often embodies the tension between pragmatic doubt and necessary belief, a relatable bridge for the audience. Her initial insistence on logic and rules grounds the fantastical events in a recognizable reality. Her evolution involves learning that some truths exist beyond the rational, culminating in her use of the bow and horn not just as weapons, but as acts of faith in a cause greater than herself. The film deepens its mythology through the inclusion of various Narnian creatures, each representing different facets of the world's spirit. The noble centaurs and majestic griffins embody martial honor and ancient wisdom. The gentle fauns and talking animals represent the vulnerable populace suffering under oppression. This ensemble creates a rich tapestry of a living, breathing world worth saving from the witch's sterile tyranny. Aslan's resurrection scene is a masterclass in conveying theological concepts through pure cinema. The shattering of the stone table, bathed in triumphant sunrise light, visually represents the overthrow of an old, merciless law. His joyful reunion with Susan and Lucy is charged with an ecstatic, almost palpable sense of love conquering death, a moment that feels mystical rather than merely magical. The characterization of the White Witch succeeds by avoiding one-dimensional evil, instead presenting a chillingly intellectual and prideful antagonist. Her power is shown to be formidable and rooted in a twisted sense of entitlement and ancient law. Her cold rage when discovering Aslan's sacrifice has been voided reveals her fundamental misunderstanding of a power greater than her own, a power based on love. The dynamic between the siblings forms the crucial human core around which the epic fantasy revolves. Their conflicts, loyalties, and enduring bond provide the emotional stakes that make the cosmic battle personally meaningful. The film wisely spends time establishing their wartime anxieties and familial tensions, making their Narnian roles feel like an extension and healing of their real-world selves. Mr. Tumnus's initial moral failure and subsequent courage establish the film's nuanced view of goodness under tyranny. He is not presented as instantly heroic. His fear is palpable and relatable. His decision to help Lucy despite the terrible risk models a personal bravery that inspires the larger rebellion, showing how individual acts of conscience can ignite widespread change. The technical achievement of bringing Aslan to life cannot be overstated. He needed to be simultaneously fearsome, approachable, and regal. Through advanced CGI and Liam Neeson's soulful vocal performance, Aslan conveys immense power restrained by profound gentleness. Every glance and movement communicates his dual nature as both a formidable wild lion and a compassionate, knowing sovereign. The concept of deeper magic serves as the narrative's ultimate turning point, introducing a transformative principle of grace. This ancient, pre-dawn law supersedes the witch's harsh justice, introducing a theme of hope that evil cannot anticipate or comprehend. It reframes the entire story from a predictable conflict into a revelation of a universe ultimately governed by redemptive love. Jadis's enforcement of always winter and never Christmas is a brilliant symbolic device for spiritual and creative stagnation. Christmas represents hope, festivity, and the promise of new life. Its absence signifies a world where time and growth are frozen. The eventual arrival of Father Christmas is thus a military and spiritual turning point, signaling the witch's power is cracking and hope is physically breaking through. The final battle at Baruna is choreographed to highlight character moments within the epic spectacle. Peter's duel with the witch is a classic clash of symbolic weapons and ideologies. Crucially, the focus remains on the siblings fighting together, with Edmund's decisive act of bravery destroying the witch's wand, a perfect culmination of his redemptive arc from traitor to hero. The film's score by Harry Gregson Williams intricately weaves thematic material for characters and concepts. A majestic, brassy theme heralds Aslan and the glory of Narnia, while chilling, ethereal vocals and metallic textures characterize the witch's magic. The music for the children evolves from simple, wartime England motifs into regal, coronation fanfares, sonically charting their transformation. The professor's role, though brief, is critically important as the link between the worlds and a voice of enlightened belief. His defense of Lucy's story, "Why should she tell lies?" validates the logic of faith and opens the door for the older children to believe. He represents an intellectual acceptance of the fantastic, suggesting that true wisdom is open to mysteries beyond empirical proof. The beavers function as the vital narrative conduit, providing exposition, warmth, and a model of steadfast loyalty. Their cozy dam offers a haven of domestic normality, contrasting sharply with the peril outside. They translate the prophecy for the children and the audience, grounding the epic stakes in a relatable, homely context and demonstrating the resilient heart of the Narnian resistance. Narnia's transformation from winter to spring is one of the film's most breathtaking visual sequences, a direct cinematic expression of thematic victory. The melting ice, blooming flowers, and rushing water are not just pretty images. They are the very land itself rejoicing and participating in its own liberation, showing that true rule is symbiotic with the flourishing of the realm. The witch's use of Edmund operates as a keen study in the mechanics of temptation and manipulation. She identifies his insecurities and desires with predatory precision, offering him not just candy but the status and revenge he craves. Her subsequent brutal dismissal of him, "Do you think I want you now?" lays bare the empty, cruel reality behind all selfish promises. Susan's gift of the bow and horn from Father Christmas symbolizes her evolving role. They are tools of defense and summoning, not attack. They represent a shift from passive doubt to active, protective engagement. The horn's call to Aslan beautifully symbolizes her growing understanding that help is available, but one must have the faith to ask for it. Lucy's gift of the healing cordial and dagger is deeply symbolic of her character's essence. The cordial represents her compassionate, restorative heart, while the dagger acknowledges the unexpected courage within her innocence. She is not merely a passive believer, but an active participant in the healing and defense of Narnia, using her gifts to save both Prince Edmund and numerous wounded creatures. Peter's gifts. The sword and shield are iconic emblems of the king and protector he must become. The sword, Rindon, is a tool of authority and justice, while the shield bears the heraldry of Aslan, signifying under whose authority he fights. His initial reluctance to use them mirrors his reluctance to lead, making his eventual wielding of them a powerful acceptance of his destiny. The film explores the cost of war even within its fantastical framework, adding depth to its triumphant ending. Aslan acknowledges the casualties at the battle's end, and the celebration is tinged with solemnity. This maturity prevents the victory from feeling glib, honoring the sacrifice of the fallen Narnians and acknowledging that even righteous conflict carries a profound price. The relationship between time in Narnia and in our world is a subtle but fascinating undercurrent. The children age and reign for years in Narnia, yet return to their own world at the exact moment they left. This establishes Narnia not as a mere dream, but as a separate, equally real realm with its own temporal flow, deepening the sense of a vast, multi-layered reality. The cinematography consistently uses scale to emphasize the children's journey from insignificance to sovereignty. Early shots in Narnia often frame them as small figures in a vast, icy landscape overwhelmed. By the film's end, they are filmed from low angles at Cair Paravel, towering and majestic, visually cementing their completed transformation into monarchs. The portrayal of the witch's army, a host of monsters, hags, and minotaurs, serves to visualize the corruption and fear she spreads. These creatures are often twisted or frightening, reflecting a nature perverted away from Aslan's harmonious creation. Their dissolution upon her death visually signifies how evil's constructs cannot endure once its central, animating force is removed. The river sequence, where Aslan's breath resurrects the statues in the witch's courtyard, is a potent allegory for grace bringing the dead back to life. Each creature, frozen in a moment of fear or defiance, is restored to vibrant life and purpose. It is a microcosm of Aslan's work in Narnia, shattering bondage and restoring original, joyful identity. Edmund's rescue from the witch's castle is a pivotal action set-piece driven by character motivation. Aslan's dispatch of a rescue party, led by Peter, demonstrates that the fight for one repentant soul is worth a great risk. It physically enacts the film's core theme, that every individual, no matter how lost, is of immense value and worthy of a costly rescue. The Pevensie's adjustment to life back in England provides a poignant and resonant coda. Their changed posture, the knowing glances, and the professor's silent understanding affirm the lasting impact of their journey. They are not children who had an adventure, but kings and queens temporarily inhabiting children's bodies, carrying a wisdom that will forever separate them from their peers. The film's sound design meticulously creates the auditory landscape of Narnia. The crunch of perpetual snow, the howl of the witch's wolves, the stark silence of her castle contrast with the lively sounds of Aslan's camp. Crackling fire, murmured conversations, and eventually, the birdsong and rushing water of spring. Sound becomes a key indicator of which power holds sway. The character of Janarbrick, the witch's dwarf, offers a dark mirror to the heroic Narnians. His servitude is born of cynical allegiance to power rather than fear or forced loyalty. His sneering contempt and glee in others' suffering highlight how prolonged service to tyranny can corrupt a soul completely, making him a miniature portrait of evil's banality. The design of the stone table itself, covered in ancient runes and cracked down the middle, is rich with symbolic import. The runes suggest the old, immutable law of sacrifice, while the pre-existing crack foreshadows its eventual breaking. It functions as an altar, a tomb, and a monument to a superseded justice, all in one stark, powerful image. Aslan's conversation with the witch before his sacrifice is a masterful scene of theological negotiation played as high-stakes drama. His quiet, unwavering resolve contrasts with her triumphant sneering. The dialogue reveals the deep magic as a binding, cosmic contract, setting the stage for his subversion of it through a higher, older principle she is ignorant of. The use of foreshadowing is deftly handled, weaving prophecy into the narrative fabric. Mr. Beaver's recitation of the rhyme about 2 thrones at Cair Paravel plants the seed of the climax and the children's destiny. Even the professor's house, filled with artifacts and hints of other worlds, suggests a larger universe of which Narnia is only one part. The film presents a nuanced view of courage, showing it is often an act done while afraid. Peter is visibly terrified before the final battle, yet he leads. Lucy is frightened in the witch's courtyard, yet she proceeds. This validates the audience's own fears and redefines bravery not as the absence of fear, but as action taken in spite of it for a greater good. The coronation scene is the triumphant visual and emotional payoff for every character arc clad in magnificent robes. The children are no longer playing dress-up. They embody the royalty they have grown into. Aslan's proud gaze confirms their transformation is complete. The cheers of the Narnians affirm that true rulers are those who earn the love of their people. The thematic connection between the Blitz and the war in Narnia is profound. The children are evacuated from a world war to become participants in a cosmic one. Their experience with loss, fear, and the need for resilience in England directly prepares them for their roles in Narnia, suggesting that our world's struggles are echoes of larger, spiritual conflicts. The portrayal of Father Christmas is a carefully calibrated turning point, shifting the tone from desperate flight to hopeful quest. His arrival is the first undeniable crack in the witch's spell, and his gifts are not mere presents but tools of empowerment and symbols of a returning moral order where generosity and justice are again possible. The concept of hope is made tangible throughout the film. For the Narnians, hope is the whispered rumor of Aslan's return. For the children, hope is the belief they can make a difference. The film argues that hope is the most potent weapon against a tyranny built on despair, and its gradual rekindling in Narnia's citizens is what makes victory achievable. The relationship between Aslan and the witch is not of equal opposites, but of a rightful king versus a usurping tyrant. Their power sources are fundamentally different. His from creation and love, hers from conquest and fear. This clarifies the conflict as one of restoration versus corruption, not a simple dualism. With Narnia itself as the prize to be healed. Lucy's second visit to Mr. Tumnus's ransacked home is a moment of profound loss and maturing understanding. She confronts the real consequences of the witch's evil and the cost of her friend's bravery. This scene deepens her motivation, transforming her journey from one of wonder to one of determined resolve to set things right. The film's pacing expertly balances intimate character moments with expansive spectacle. Quiet scenes of conversation at the Beaver's Dam or in Aslan's camp are given as much weight as the battle sequences. This ensures the audience remains emotionally invested in the characters' fates, making the epic climax personally meaningful rather than just visually impressive. The ethical framework of the story emphasizes choice and consequence. Edmund chooses betrayal and suffers enslavement. Peter chooses to fight and grows into leadership. Mr. Tumnus chooses to spare Lucy and faces arrest. Aslan chooses sacrifice and achieves victory. Every major turn in the plot is driven by a character's moral decision, reinforcing themes of agency and responsibility. The visual motif of thawing ice is a persistent symbol of the witch's disintegrating control. From the first drop of water in the Beaver's Dam to the great thaw during Aslan's resurrection, ice melting signifies the return of flow, time, life, and emotion. It is a constant, quiet visual reminder that her static, frozen reign is unnatural and temporary. The inclusion of mythical hybrids like centaurs and griffins connects Narnia to a broader tapestry of human mythology, suggesting it exists within a collective imaginative heritage. These creatures carry the gravitas of ancient archetypes, lending the film's world a sense of deep history and timeless conflict that predates the children's arrival. Susan's transition from skeptic to believer is mirrored in her changing attire. She begins in practical, wartime clothing, but gradually accepts and wields the bow. By the coronation, her gown and crown signify a full embrace of her Narnian identity, a visual representation of her internal shift from a world of facts to a world where faith and magic are real. The Wolves of the Witch, led by Maugrim, serve as her secret police, instilling fear and hunting dissidents. Their predatory nature makes them perfect agents of her rule by terror. Peter's defeat of Maugrim is a crucial rite of passage, the point where he actively confronts and overcomes the embodiment of the fear that has been chasing them. The film's dialogue often carries layered meaning, particularly in Aslan's pronouncements. Lines like "it is finished" at the stone table directly echo biblical scripture, while "do not cite the deep magic to me," which asserts a higher authority. His language is always weighted with the gravity of ancient truth and sovereign power. The psychological realism of the siblings' interactions grounds the fantasy. Their squabbles, Peter's bossiness, Edmund's sulking and Lucy's pleading are instantly recognizable. This makes their eventual unity and mutual respect in Narnia, where Edmund calls Peter, "Your Majesty," with sincere deference, a powerful testament to their growth. The cost of Edmund's betrayal is felt not just by him, but by the entire family and the Narnian resistance. It forces a perilous delay, endangers the beavers, and necessitates Aslan's sacrifice. The narrative does not minimize the ripple effects of a single selfish choice, making his redemption all the more necessary and hard-won. The feast after the coronation is a celebration of community and abundance restored. The long table laden with food, music, and dancing Narnians presents a stark contrast to the witches' solitary, icy feasts. It visually completes the cycle from scarcity to plenty, from fear to joy, cementing the new era of peace and fellowship under the Pevensie's rule. Ultimately, the film succeeds as an adaptation by honoring the spirit, heart, and core truths of Lewis's novel, while embracing the unique tools of cinema. It uses visual spectacle, musical scoring, and nuanced performances to evoke the same sense of wonder, moral clarity, and spiritual longing that has made the book a classic for generations. The narrative opens not in fantasy, but in the visceral terror of the London Blitz, a critical expansion from the novel that grounds the epic in historical trauma. This choice immediately establishes the children's vulnerability and the wartime context of displacement, making their journey into the wardrobe an escape into a symbolic externalization of their inner conflict. The roaring bombers and frantic evacuation visually parallel the chaotic forces they will later confront in Narnia, seamlessly connecting the two worlds through the universal language of conflict and courage. Their shelter in the professor's mansion becomes a liminal space, a quiet between storms where the ordinary rules of reality begin to softly unravel, preparing both characters and audience for the impossible. Professor Kirk's country house functions as a crucial narrative antechamber, rich with unseen history and whispered potential. Its labyrinthine corridors, shadowed rooms, and the palpable silence of a place holding its breath create an atmosphere of potent secrecy. The house itself seems to participate in the magic, offering the wardrobe as a portal only when the time and the individual, Lucy's uniquely open-hearted nature, are precisely right. This setting argues that portals to other worlds are not found in grand, obvious places, but hidden within the fabric of the mundane, waiting for a perceptive soul to unlock them. The professor's own knowing demeanor suggests he is a guardian of this threshold, a veteran of other journeys who understands that the truest adventures require no explanation to those who have never left their armchairs. Lucy's initial foray into Narnia is a masterclass in building awe, where sound design and visual pacing work in perfect harmony. The crush of fur coats gives way to the crunch of snow underfoot, and the stifling closet air is replaced by the cold, clear breath of another world. The camera adopts Lucy's low-angle perspective, gazing up at the skeletal trees and the lone lamppost, an object of profound mystery that stands as a permanent marker between worlds. This scene is devoid of immediate danger, focusing instead on the sheer, quiet wonder of discovery, a tone that makes the subsequent meeting with Mr. Tumnus feel like a natural part of the landscape's enchantment rather than a narrative intrusion. Mr. Tumnus's introduction brilliantly establishes the moral and political climate of Narnia under the witch's reign through character-driven microdrama. His kindness is genuine, yet it is frayed at the edges by a visible, trembling fear. The cozy details of his home, the books, the parcels, the fire, paint a picture of a civilized, artistic soul, making his confessed mission to capture a son of Adam or daughter of Eve all the more devastating. This conflict within a single character immediately tells the audience that this is a world where goodness is under siege, where compassion must battle survival instinct. His tearful repentance is the first victory of the story, a small, personal rebellion that proves the witch's power is not absolute and that conscience can still triumph over coercion. Edmund's entry into Narnia is deliberately crafted as a dark inversion of Lucy's experience. Where Lucy found a friend, Edmund is immediately met with the regal, intimidating figure of Jadis. The witch's first impression, arriving in a silent sleigh like a frozen queen, is calculated to awe and dominate. Her interrogation of Edmund is a psychological manipulation, feigning ignorance while expertly drawing out his resentment and vanity. The enchanted Turkish delight is not merely a treat, but a symbolic instrument of corruption, its addictive sweetness representing all empty promises that erode will and loyalty. This sequence establishes Edmund not as inherently evil, but as a flawed, relatable child susceptible to flattery and the immediate gratification of his frustrations. The dynamic of sibling disbelief upon Lucy's return is a poignant exploration of how truth is mediated through social hierarchies and preconception. Peter and Susan, operating from a place of older sibling responsibility and wartime-induced pragmatism, dismiss Lucy's story as a harmless coping mechanism. Edmund, however, knowing the truth and choosing to deny it, commits a far deeper betrayal motivated by spite and self-protection. This domestic conflict mirrors the larger one in Narnia, where truth is suppressed by the powerful. The professor's wise intervention, questioning why Lucy would invent such a tale, champions intuitive belief over rigid rationality, positioning him as a guide who understands that larger worlds operate on different logical frameworks. The chaotic, joyful moment, all four children tumbling into Narnia together, is a pivotal point of no return, cinematically emphasizing their shared destiny. The destruction of the wardrobe's back panel by Susan solidifies their commitment. There is no easy path back, forcing them to rely on each other in this new, perilous environment. Their discovery of Mr. Tumnus's ransacked home, with the chilling notice from the secret police, transforms the adventure into an urgent rescue mission. This plot turn personalizes the conflict, giving the children a direct stake in Narnia's fate and catalyzing their transition from accidental tourists to active participants in the rebellion against tyranny. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver serve as the vital narrative catalysts, translating the children's personal mission into the grand sweep of prophecy and legend. Their cozy, industrious dam is a sanctuary of steadfast Narnian values, hospitality, courage, and hope. The Beaver's exposition about Aslan is delivered with a reverence that is both spiritual and visceral. Mrs. Beaver's simple statement, "He's not a tame lion," encapsulates the wild, untamable nature of true goodness. Their guidance provides the siblings with a map, both literal and moral, shifting their goal from merely rescuing a fawn to embracing their ordained roles as the liberators of an entire kingdom. The prophecy itself, whispered as an ancient rhyme, provides the mythological architecture that elevates the children's presence from coincidence to destiny. It introduces the concept of Cair Paravel as a lost seat of rightful authority and frames the overthrow of the witch as a restoration of natural order. This prophetic element places the Pevensies within a historical continuum larger than themselves, challenging them to grow into figures of legend. It also creates a tangible objective beyond mere survival, offering a beacon of hope that organizes the resistance and gives the Narnian creatures a reason to endure the endless winter. Edmund's secret flight to the witch's castle is a tense sequence driven by character flaw and magical addiction. His choice is a tragic miscalculation, believing the witch's promises while ignoring the clear evidence of her cruelty he witnessed in the frozen statues. The journey is bleak and isolating, visually contrasting the warm fellowship he abandons at the dam. This act of betrayal is the fulcrum of the plot, setting in motion the witch's aggressive pursuit and forcing the story toward its central crisis: the demand for a traitor's blood according to the unforgiving deep magic. The character of Aslan is introduced not with a grand entrance, but through the transformative effect he has on the landscape and his followers. The arrival of spring, the melting river, and the sense of breathless anticipation among the Narnians all herald his coming before he is seen. When he finally appears, the film employs a sublime combination of majestic music, reverent reaction shots from the creatures, and awe-filled silences. His physical presence, a marvel of digital artistry, balances immense power with a palpable gentleness in his eyes, immediately justifying the trust and devotion he inspires. The first council at Aslan's camp establishes his leadership style, authoritative yet consultative, firm yet compassionate. His private conversation with Peter about leadership is a quiet, pivotal moment of mentorship, where Peter's doubt is met not with criticism, but with empowering confidence. Meanwhile, the rescue party dispatched for Edmund demonstrates Aslan's commitment to mercy. He fights for the one lost sheep even as he prepares for a war. This duality shows a sovereign who governs with both strategic strength and profound personal care for each subject. The negotiation between Aslan and the White Witch over Edmund's life is a riveting scene of high-stakes, metaphysical diplomacy. The witch's invocation of the deep magic from the dawn of time is a legalistic claim, cold and irrevocable. Aslan's acceptance of its terms, followed by his private, sorrowful walk, imbues the scene with a heavy sense of inevitable sacrifice. The witch's triumphant smirk reveals her belief that she has won by enforcing a rules-based justice, utterly blind to the possibility of a deeper, more powerful moral law that operates on the principles of grace and substitution. The walk to the stone table is a funeral procession in all but name, a sequence steeped in solemn grief and cosmic significance. Susan and Lucy's silent, desperate companionship, the mournful music, and the ominous gathering of the witch's horrific retinue all build a palpable dread. Aslan's vulnerability here is shocking. The mighty lion is shaved, bound, and mocked, a visual parallel to the scourging and humiliation of the Passion. This deliberate humiliation makes his sacrifice not just a physical death, but a total surrender of dignity and power, deepening the emotional and symbolic resonance of the act. The sacrifice on the stone table is the film's emotional and theological apex, handled with a potent mix of brutality and reverence. The witch's gloating speech personifies evil's final, futile triumph before a greater power. The actual killing is suggested rather than graphically shown, focusing instead on the reactions of Susan and Lucy, whose horror and grief stand in for the audiences. The breaking of the witch's knife on the stone after the deed is done is a brilliant, subtle touch, a first hint that the instrument of death itself has been rendered powerless by the nature of the sacrifice. The bleak aftermath at the stone table, under a cold, gray dawn, seems to confirm the victory of despair. The mice gnawing at Aslan's bonds, often overlooked, are a small, beautiful detail of persistent loyalty in the face of overwhelming defeat. Susan and Lucy's mourning is raw and childlike, their hopes seemingly extinguished. This period of utter hopelessness is crucial, as it makes the subsequent miracle not a convenient plot twist, but a genuine, earth-shattering reversal that fundamentally alters the rules of the narrative universe. The resurrection of Aslan, heralded by a deep crack and a blinding sunrise, is a moment of pure cinematic transcendence. The shattering of the stone table represents the breaking of the old law of retribution. Aslan's reappearance, larger and more radiant, bursting with life and joyous energy, is a visceral release of all the pent-up sorrow. His explanation of the deeper magic from before the dawn of time provides the intellectual framework, but the emotional impact is in the joyful reunion, the laughter, and the feeling of a love so strong it has literally conquered death. The liberation of the statues in the witch's courtyard is the active, triumphant expression of Aslan's resurrected power. It is a sequence of glorious, creative destruction, where his breath acts as a force of unmaking and restoration. Each creature returning to life, from a tiny squirrel to a mighty giant, is a mini-celebration, visually demonstrating that his victory is not just over the witch, but over the very principle of petrification and stasis she represents. This scene transforms the site of her greatest terror into a living army for good, a perfect metaphor for redemption. The convergence of the two armies at Baruna is orchestrated with clear strategic geography, allowing the audience to understand the battle's stakes and flow. Peter's army, though courageous, is visibly outmatched and reliant on terrain. The witch's forces are monstrous and numerous, their charge terrifying in its relentless aggression. The battle is not glorified. It is chaotic, brutal, and desperate, emphasizing that this is a costly fight for survival. Peter's growth is shown in his tactical commands and his brave duel with the witch, where he holds his own not through superior skill, but through sheer determination to protect his siblings. Edmund's role in the battle is the culmination of his redemption arc. He moves from being a passive liability to a strategic hero. His decision to target the witch's wand is a moment of brilliant insight and self-sacrifice. He understands that her magical power is the key to her military dominance. His act of destruction, followed by the witch's brutal retaliation against him, completes his journey. He pays for his betrayal not with his life, as the deep magic demanded, but with a courageous act that saves the army, thus earning his forgiveness through action, not just receiving it through Aslan's sacrifice. Aslan's final confrontation with the witch dispenses with armies and focuses on the primal clash of their opposing natures. Her use of the remnant of her wand staff as a spear shows her resourcefulness and rage. His pounce and final dispatch are swift and decisive, underscoring that the ultimate power he represents, the power of creation and life, renders her destructive magic ultimately futile. Her shattering, like ice, reinforces that her entire being was an unnatural construct, a perversion that cannot withstand the true, solid reality of the lion's roar. The aftermath of the battle is given appropriate gravity. Aslan tends to the dying Edmund, using Lucy's cordial in a quiet moment that mirrors his own restoration. The celebration is tempered with a moment of silence for the fallen, acknowledging that victory, however righteous, has a price. This maturity keeps the film from becoming a simplistic, bloodless fantasy and grounds its themes of sacrifice and tangible loss, making the hard-won peace feel earned and precious. The journey to Cair Paravel is a victorious procession through a Narnia in full, glorious bloom. The children ride with Aslan, now visibly revered as liberators by the populace. The castle itself, revealed as a sun-drenched seaside ruin being magically restored, symbolizes the rebuilding of a kingdom. Not just its stones, but its laws, its joy, and its future. This sequence allows a breath of accomplishment and wonder before the formal assumption of responsibility. The coronation is the ultimate visual and narrative payoff. The children, clad in regalia that fits them perfectly, are transformed. Their postures, expressions, and mutual glances speak of a hard-earned wisdom. Aslan's silent departure during the ceremony is profoundly significant. His work of restoration is complete, and he entrusts the kingdom to its human sovereigns. His exit asserts that true guidance prepares its followers to rule independently, not to create a permanent dependency. The Golden Age montage, showing the Pevensies ruling from Cair Paravel, hunting the white stag, and growing into their royal personas, fulfills the prophecy in a glorious, wordless sequence. It establishes that their reign is long, prosperous, and just, the direct result of the virtues they forged during their adventure. This montage cements their identity as monarchs, making their subsequent discovery of the lamppost and the wardrobe door all the more disorienting. The return through the wardrobe is a masterstroke of emotional whiplash. In an instant, they are children again in frayed coats, tumbling back into the spare room. The visceral contrast between the majestic rulers they were and the small children they appear to be is the film's final, poignant commentary on the nature of growth and inner experience. Their shared knowledge, however, has irrevocably changed them, compressing a lifetime of leadership and brotherhood into a single, unaged body. The film's final scene with the professor is a perfect, circular closure. The children, bursting to tell their incredible story, find in him a knowing, believing ear. His simple, approving smile and his final line about not expecting to see them again suggests his own past adventures and welcomes them into a secret fellowship of those who have visited other worlds. It ends not with an ending, but with the promise that the adventure, in their hearts and potentially in future returns to Narnia, is never truly over. The opening depiction of the London Blitz serves as a profound thematic prelude, establishing a world where safety is illusory and authority figures are absent. This historical reality of fractured families and nightly terror primes the audience to understand the children's deep-seated need for a realm where they can exert control and enact meaningful change. The visual chaos of the aerial bombardment directly contrasts with the oppressive, silent order of the White Witch's Narnia, suggesting both are landscapes of conflict waiting for a catalyst of hope. Their evacuation to the countryside is not merely a plot device, but a dislocation from the familiar, making them psychologically receptive to the radical dislocation of crossing into another world entirely. The professor's mansion is imbued with a palpable sense of latent history, its corridors whispering of secrets and its very architecture suggesting withheld knowledge. This environment functions as a crucible for the siblings' strained dynamics, forcing their wartime anxieties to manifest in petty squabbles and protective instincts. The grandeur and emptiness of the house magnify their vulnerability, while simultaneously offering the freedom for exploration that leads to destiny. It is a space suspended outside of time, much like Narnia itself, where the normal rules of the world seem softened and permeable, allowing the magical to seep through the cracks of boredom and loneliness. Lucy's pivotal moment at the wardrobe is a testament to childlike curiosity unburdened by the cynical world weariness of her older siblings. Her act of reaching past the fur coats is driven not by a desire to escape, but by a simple, playful impulse, a narrative choice that positions innocence as the key to unlocking transcendence. The sensory shift from the mothball scent of the closet to the crisp, pine-scented air of Narnia is a crucial cinematic detail that sells the reality of the transition. The iconic lamppost, shining alone in a snowy wood, operates as a brilliant symbol of guidance and mystery, a beacon from another age that marks the borderland between all worlds. Mr. Tumnus's home provides the first true glimpse into Narnian culture, a culture currently in hiding but still vibrant with art, music, and hospitality. The faun's conflicted nature is the audience's entry point into the moral complexity of life under tyranny. He is both a potential predator and a compassionate friend, a duality forced upon him by a regime that twists natural kindness into a weapon. His confession to Lucy is not just exposition but a cathartic act of reclaiming his own soul, establishing a core theme that resistance begins with small, personal choices of conscience. The arrest notice nailed to his door by the wolves is the witch's brutal signature, making the political terrifyingly personal. Edmund's encounter with the witch is a seduction scene built on psychological astuteness, where Jotties expertly mirrors and amplifies his grievances. She offers him not just candy, but validation, status, and the fantasy of usurping Peter's authority, which are far more intoxicating to him than sugar. The sleigh, the crown, the title of prince. These are props in a performance designed to inflate his ego and isolate him from his family. The Turkish delight's enchantment serves as a metaphor for how the pursuit of selfish desires can cloud judgment and create a binding dependency, making the victim complicit in their own corruption. The conflict in the professor's house following Lucy's claims explores the sociology of belief within a family unit. Peter and Susan, as the de facto parents in their parents' absence, operate from a framework of protective rationality. Fearing Lucy's lies are a symptom of trauma. Edmund's conscious deception, however, introduces a poisonous element of bad faith that fractures trust at its core. The professor's intervention is pivotal because he appeals to a higher logic, the logic of empirical evidence about Lucy's character, thereby modeling a form of reason that is open to the fantastic. This scene argues that true wisdom is flexible enough to accommodate miracles. The forced journey through the wardrobe, triggered by the housekeeper's tour and their need to hide, is a narrative stroke of genius that removes the element of choice. They are thrust into Narnia not as seekers but as refugees, replicating their wartime evacuation and reinforcing their role as displaced persons. Discovering Tumnus's devastation makes the fantasy world urgently real and morally demanding. They can no longer be spectators. The perpetual winter landscape they enter is a character in itself, a physical manifestation of the witch's stagnant, life-denying rule, where time itself feels frozen and progress impossible. The Beaver's Lodge represents the enduring hearth of the Narnian resistance, a hidden pocket of warmth and normalcy sustained by perseverance and hope. Their characters provide crucial tonal balance, offering humor and folksy wisdom that ground the high prophecy in relatable, domestic reality. Mr. Beaver's brisk, no-nonsense recounting of the prophecy demystifies it, treating destiny as a practical matter of going to meet Aslan. Their trust in the children, despite the risk, demonstrates the Narnian capacity for faith in the ancient promises, a faith that has survived 100 years of winter. The prophecy of two thrones at Cair Paravel operates as the narrative's engine, transforming the children from lost refugees into central political figures. This ancient verse gives shape to the Narnians' longing and provides a concrete goal beyond mere survival. It also imposes a terrifying burden of expectation on the Pevensies, particularly Peter, who must rapidly evolve from a boy avoiding responsibility to a king in waiting. The prophecy's conditional nature, that the witch's power fails when 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve sit on the thrones, ties the fate of an entire world directly to their unity and survival. Edmund's treachery is a catastrophic failure of that unity, motivated by a toxic blend of personal pique and magical addiction. His flight through the blizzard is a visually stark representation of his isolation, both physical and moral. Believing the witch's lies, he imagines himself marching to a coronation, while the audience understands he is delivering himself into bondage. This tragic irony underscores the film's moral clarity. Choices made in selfishness lead not to empowerment, but to a far more ruthless subjugation. His capture and humiliation in her courtyard are the inevitable consequence of trusting a tyrant's promise. The film's portrayal of Aslan's approach is a masterwork of anticipation, where nature itself becomes a herald. The melting ice, the budding flowers, and the return of birdsong are all acts of silent testimony to his life-giving power. When he appears, the reaction of the Narnians, a mixture of awe, joy, and reverent fear, tells the audience everything about his nature before he speaks a word. His physical design, with intelligent, compassionate eyes set in a powerful predator's face, visually encapsulates the paradox of a love that is both tender and dangerously potent, a sovereign who is good but not safe. Aslan's first counsel reveals a leader who balances majestic authority with intimate pastoral care. His separate conversations, mentoring Peter, comforting Susan and Lucy, planning Edmund's rescue, show a multidimensional ruler engaged in both statecraft and soulcraft. He validates Peter's nascent leadership, assuages Susan's doubts, and honors Lucy's faith, meeting each child at their point of need. This establishes his kingdom as one of ordered diversity, where different personalities and gifts are recognized and mobilized for a common purpose, in stark contrast to the witches' homogenizing tyranny. The confrontation on the negotiation field is a clash of legalistic evil against merciful sovereignty. The witch wields the deep magic like a contract lawyer, claiming her lawful due with cold precision. Aslan's secret bargain, whispered off-screen, introduces the concept of a higher calculus that operates on sacrifice and substitution. The witch's triumph in this moment is hollow, for she understands only the magic of transaction and compulsion, not the magic of gift and voluntary love. Her departure, thinking she has outmaneuvered him, sets the stage for her ultimate defeat by a principle she cannot comprehend. The procession to the stone table is filmed with the solemn gravity of a passion play, the camera lingering on Aslan's resigned dignity and the girl's helpless grief. The torment by the witch's vile cohorts, the hags, minotaurs, and Janarbrick, serves to highlight the grotesque nature of a power that delights in debasing the noble. The shearing of Aslan's mane is a particularly potent violation, a stripping of his majesty and identity. This entire sequence forces the audience to sit with the horror of innocent sacrifice, making no attempt to soften the injustice, because the power of the resurrection is meaningless without the full weight of the death. The execution itself is handled with a powerful restraint that focuses on emotional impact over graphic violence. The witch's declaration, "It is finished," is a blasphemous inversion, claiming an end that is actually a beginning. The great crack that echoes across the land at the moment of death is the first sign of the world itself recoiling at the violation. The image of the two girls clinging to each other in the gray dawn, surrounded by a retreating mob of jeering monsters, is one of the film's most desolate and powerful, representing the moment when hope seems utterly extinguished. The stillness following the sacrifice is profound, broken only by the skittering of the mice. These small creatures, showing a loyalty untainted by grand prophecy, perform a final service of love, gnawing away the ropes that bound Aslan. This tiny act foreshadows the greater unbinding to come and suggests that compassion exists on all scales. Susan and Lucy's decision to stay by the body, despite their fear, is a testament to their love and completes their role as witnesses, positioning them as the first to experience the miracle that will rewrite the story's very rules. The resurrection is an explosion of light, sound, and kinetic energy that is the cinematic antithesis of the death scene's stillness. The shattered stone table, now just broken rubble, symbolizes the permanent overthrow of an old, merciless order. Aslan's reappearance is exuberant and playful, his joy contagious, emphasizing that the victory is not somber but celebratory. His explanation of the deeper magic provides the theological framework, defining it as a law of love and redemption written into the foundations of reality that takes precedence over the law of sin and death. The liberation of the statues is the joyous, practical application of Aslan's resurrected power. Each breath restores not just life but individuality, from the delicate blink of a rabbit to the mighty stretch of a giant. This scene visually articulates the theme of redemption as a return to one's true, unfrozen self. The transformation of the witch's courtyard from a museum of terror into a vibrant army symbolizes how the very instruments of oppression can be turned against the oppressor when touched by a liberating force. It is a narrative and visual declaration that nothing is beyond redemption. The Battle of Baruna is structured to showcase not just spectacle, but character. Peter's leadership is shown through his commands and his placement in the front line. The witch's tactics rely on brute force and magical terror, her charge designed to break morale. The cinematography in the battle emphasizes claustrophobic chaos for the Narnians, contrasting with the witch's clean, destructive sweeps from her vantage point. This highlights the asymmetrical nature of the conflict, faith and courage against overwhelming magical and numerical superiority. Edmund's heroic intervention is the perfect culmination of his arc, demonstrating strategic thinking and self-sacrificial courage. He realizes that in a magical war, the key target is the enemy's source of power. His destruction of the wand is an act of atonement, actively undoing the damage his betrayal helped facilitate. The witch's subsequent attack on him is her acknowledgement that he has transformed from a pawn into her greatest threat. His near death completes his redemption, as he finally offers his life for his siblings and for Narnia, mirroring in a small way the sacrifice made for him. The duel between Aslan and the witch reduces the epic war to its essential mythic core, the primal struggle between creation and destruction. She fights with the shattered remnant of her power, a symbol of her now diminished but still deadly reign. Aslan's victory is swift and total, a pounce of primal authority. Her death, shattering into ice, reinforces that her power was always an illusion, a cold facsimile of life that cannot withstand the true, roaring fire of authentic being. It is a defeat not just of a villain, but of the very principle of entropy she embodied. The aftermath of the battle prioritizes healing and reconciliation. Aslan's gentle revival of Edmund with Lucy's cordial creates a beautiful symmetry, the tool gifted by the returning hope of Christmas used to enact a miniature resurrection. The mourning for the fallen, including the centaur Aureus, grants the victory dignity and gravity. This moment ensures the story does not celebrate war itself, but celebrates what was preserved and saved from tyranny, honoring the cost of peace. The coronation at Cair Paravel is the formal ratification of the children's internal transformation. The ceremony, bathed in golden light, is less about granting them power and more about recognizing the royalty they have already grown into through their trials. Aslan's presence, and then his quiet departure, signifies that his work as deliverer is complete and the kingdom is now theirs to steward. The crowns placed on their heads are not gifts, but symbols of a burden and a promise they have already proven themselves willing and able to bear. The glimpse of their Golden Age reign, through swift, evocative shots of them ruling, judging, and exploring, fulfills the prophecy in a deeply satisfying montage. It shows a Narnia healed and flourishing under their just rule, a direct result of the virtues they forged. This sequence is crucial because it makes their subsequent loss tangible. They are not leaving a mere adventure, but a lifetime of achievement, relationships, and identity. It deepens the poignancy of their eventual return. The hunt for the white stag, a creature of myth promising wishes, represents the final adventure of their reign, a last echo of the wonder that first brought them to Narnia. Their chase through the familiar woods leads them back to the lamppost and the wardrobe door, a brilliant narrative circle. In reaching for the heart of Narnia's magic one last time, they inadvertently find the passage back to their own world, suggesting that the portals between worlds open when one is most fully immersed in the pursuit of joy and wonder. The return to the spare room is a seismic emotional jolt, deliberately abrupt and devoid of ceremony. The sudden cacophony of their childish voices, the rough texture of their clothes, the cramped space, all assault the senses, emphasizing the crushing mundanity they have re-entered. The profound silence that falls between them speaks volumes. They are united by a shared secret too vast for words, a lifetime of experience locked inside them with no external proof. They are, in that moment, the most alone and the most together people on earth. The final conversation with the professor is a scene of sublime understanding and validation. His immediate belief, his twinkling eyes, and his final line, "I shouldn't think you'll be wanting to go back," position him as a fellow traveler. This moment creates a secret society of belief, offering the children and the audience the reassurance that their experience was real and that wonder persists in the world, guarded by those who have the eyes to see it. It ends the film not with an ending, but with an open door in the mind, forever linking the ordinary and the fantastic. The visual and thematic resonance between the Blitz and the Witch's reign establishes a profound narrative continuity, framing both worlds as realms besieged by a merciless, seemingly unstoppable force. This parallel transforms the Pevensie's journey from a random escape into a meaningful repetition of conflict, one where they are no longer helpless victims, but active agents of liberation. The stark, desaturated palette of wartime London finds its fantastical counterpart in Narnia's monochromatic winter, creating a cohesive aesthetic of despair that must be overcome. This deliberate mirroring suggests that the challenges of our world are echoes of larger, archetypal battles, preparing the audience to view the children's fantastical trials as extensions of their real-world resilience. The inherent strangeness of the professor's house lies not in overt magic, but in its atmosphere of suspended time and accumulated knowledge, a sanctuary where the rational world's hold is subtly weakened. It functions as an amplifier for the children's internal states, its endless rooms and hidden corners reflecting their own confusion and longing for purpose. The silence of the house, broken only by their own footsteps and the stern Mrs. Macready's commands, imposes a reflective solitude that makes the discovery of the wardrobe inevitable. This setting posits that magic does not intrude with fanfare, but seeps into quiet moments of boredom and curiosity, awaiting those with the capacity to perceive it. Lucy's crossing is distinguished by its tactile authenticity. The audience feels the weight of the fur coats, the chill of the snow, and the awe of the lampost's anachronistic glow. This commitment to sensory detail grounds the fantasy, making Narnia feel discovered rather than invented. The lamppost itself, a fragment of a forgotten world casually growing in a wood, is a masterstroke of world building, implying a deep history of connections between worlds and serving as a permanent, enchanted landmark. Her meeting with Tumnus is not confrontational, but convivial, establishing Narnia's inherent potential for warmth and community despite its frozen surface. Tumnus's confession scene is a delicate study in moral awakening, where the faun's terror is visibly at war with his inherent gentleness. His tearful admission is an act of tremendous courage, a personal rebellion that carries immense risk. This moment establishes a crucial rule of the film's moral universe: that redemption is always possible and begins with a single, truthful choice. The subsequent ransacking of his home by the witches' police makes the political oppression viscerally real, transforming the abstract concept of a tyrant into an immediate threat that destroys personal sanctuaries. Lucy's determination to help becomes the catalyst that pulls her siblings from our world's war into Narnia's. Edmund's seduction is effective because it preys on the very real emotional economy of a middle child overshadowed by a responsible older brother and a beloved younger sister. The witch offers him a counterfeit version of significance, appealing directly to his feelings of inadequacy and injustice. Her palace, when he finally reaches it, is a revelation of sterile magnificence, all sharp ice, cold thrones, and silent, enslaved creatures, which he foolishly mistakes for power. The realization of his error, arriving too late as he is chained and mocked, is the first painful step in his genuine education about the true nature of authority and the emptiness of selfish ambition. The great debate in the professor's study following Lucy's return is a microcosm of philosophical conflicts between empiricism and faith. Peter and Susan represent a logical positivism that dismisses the unseen, while the professor champions a more expansive rationality that considers the character of the witness as valid evidence. His rhetorical question, "Why should she tell lies?" dismantles their assumptions not by proving Narnia exists, but by proving Lucy's testimony is intrinsically credible. This scene elevates the entire narrative, suggesting that the journey ahead is not just a physical adventure, but a vindication of a truth that rationality, when too narrow, cannot comprehend. Their collective entry into Narnia, forced by circumstance, erases any possibility of comfortable disbelief and forges them into a reluctant fellowship. The single-file journey through the coats, emerging one by one into the snow, is a powerful visual of their sequential acceptance of a new reality. Discovering Tumnus's plight gives their presence immediate moral urgency. They are no longer tourists but witnesses to a crime who must choose sides. The perpetual winter, now experienced by all, ceases to be Lucy's story and becomes their shared, chilling reality, a direct environmental antagonist that demands action. The beavers embody the practical, enduring spirit of the Narnian resistance, their existence a quiet act of defiance. Their dam is a triumph of cozy ingenuity, a hidden fortress of warmth where hope is kept alive like the fire in their hearth. Mr. Beaver's matter-of-fact recitation of the prophecy strips it of vague mysticism and turns it into an actionable plan. He's in Narnia. We have to go and meet him. This operationalizes faith, presenting it as a journey to be undertaken rather than a passive belief to be held. Their guidance represents the wisdom of tradition and collective memory passed down through generations of oppression. The ancient prophecy functions as the narrative's skeletal structure, providing a sense of predestined purpose that elevates the children's actions from random heroism to mythic fulfillment. It answers the why them question that hangs over any chosen one narrative, providing a satisfying in-world logic for their central role. The prophecy also creates tangible stakes. The witch's entire regime is motivated by preventing its fulfillment, making her persecution of them a direct result of the destiny they carry. This intertwines their personal survival with the cosmic fate of Narnia, raising every risk to the level of existential imperative. Edmund's betrayal is a fracture in the prophetic unity, a capitulation to short-term desire that jeopardizes the entire redemptive plan. His trek to the witch's castle is a journey into a psychological as well as physical winter, where the landscape reflects his growing isolation and moral desolation. The witch's swift discarding of her promises the moment he is in her power is a brutal but necessary lesson in the nature of deals made with evil. They are binding only on the victim. His imprisonment in her courtyard, surrounded by the tragic gallery of statues, is a potent metaphor for the spiritual paralysis that awaits those who succumb to her temptations. The film's introduction of Aslan is a masterclass in deferred gratification, where his influence is felt in the very air and earth long before he appears on screen. The arrival of spring is not a gentle change, but a violent, joyous upheaval, as if the land itself is shaking off a nightmare. When he finally stands before them, the reaction of every creature, from the smallest mouse to the towering centaurs, communicates a hierarchy of reverence that transcends species. His voice, imbued by Liam Neeson with a calm, grounded power, completes the characterization, making him feel ancient, kind, and immeasurably strong all at once. Aslan's camp is a living model of his kingdom in waiting, a society organized around loyal service and shared purpose. His interactions are personalized. He mentors Peter with a firm but encouraging touch, addresses Susan's skepticism with patient respect, and affirms Lucy's faith with gentle gratitude. The dispatch of the rescue party for Edmund is a critical character moment, demonstrating that his strategy encompasses both the grand prophetic war and the salvation of a single, wayward soul. This dual focus establishes a leadership style that is macrocosmic and microcosmic, never sacrificing the individual for the cause. The tense parley between Aslan and the witch on the stone outcropping is a clash of metaphysical languages. She speaks the cold, hard language of legal entitlement, the deep magic, as an unbreakable statute. He understands this language but operates from a deeper, more ancient grammar, that of love and substitution. The private bargain he strikes is the narrative's great turning point, a strategic withdrawal that is actually a preparation for a decisive, counterintuitive victory. The witch's triumphant retreat, believing she has enforced a fatal clause, highlights her tragic flaw, an inability to conceive of any power greater than the one of ruthless transaction and enforcement. The long walk to the stone table is a cinematic descent into despair, scored by a haunting dirge that strips away all hope. The cruelty of the witch's followers is not random but ritualistic, designed to degrade and humiliate as much as to kill. The shearing of Aslan's mane is a symbolic castration, an attempt to strip him of his identity and majesty. Susan and Lucy's helpless, trailing witness positions them as the emotional conduits for the audience, their tears representing the profound grief of seeing goodness seemingly vanquished by a gleeful, unrestrained evil. The binding to the stone table is a chilling image of ultimate constraint. The sacrifice itself is filmed with a stark, ritualistic horror that emphasizes its theological weight over its physical brutality. The witch's proclamation, "It is finished," is a direct, purposeful echo meant to resonate with cultural memory. The great crack that splits the earth at the moment of death is the first sign that this act has cosmic repercussions, fracturing the very foundation of the witch's law-based reality. The subsequent silence, broken only by the sobs of the girls and the retreating cackles of the hags, is one of the most powerful silences in modern fantasy cinema, a vacuum where meaning itself seems to have died. The bleak morning after presents a world where evil appears to have definitively triumphed. The two girls, small and shivering against the vast gray landscape, embody a hope that has been extinguished. The tender, unexpected loyalty of the mice, creatures too small to be noticed by the powerful, offers a first, fragile thread of continuity and care. This moment of quiet service foreshadows the reversal to come, suggesting that love operates in hidden ways even in the aftermath of apparent total defeat. The girls' decision to stay, to keep vigil, is an act of faithfulness that positions them to become the first witnesses to the impossible. The resurrection is not a quiet trickle of life, but a cataclysmic event of renewal. The shattering of the stone table is visceral and explosive, a physical manifestation of a law being irrevocably broken. Aslan's return is charged with an almost electric joy. He is larger, more radiant, bursting with a life so potent it cannot be contained. His explanation to the girls is delivered with exuberant affection, framing the deeper magic not as a loophole, but as the foundational, loving principle upon which all reality is built, a secret known only to those who would willingly lay down their life for another. The charge to the witch's castle is a ride of pure, liberated exhilaration, a visual and emotional release after the long tension of sacrifice and mourning. The liberation of the statues is the film's most joyous sequence of pure cinema, as Aslan's breath acts as a creative force, undoing petrification and restoring vibrant, unique life. Each transformation, a dryad blooming from a twig, a giant shaking off ice, is a miniature celebration of individuality reclaimed from uniformity. The gathering army, diverse and roaring with renewed purpose, visually demonstrates how hope, once rekindled, multiplies and becomes an unstoppable force. The Battle of Baruna is strategically staged to highlight the transition from defense to victory. The initial Narnian position is defensive, using the landscape as a shield against a more powerful foe. The witch's entrance on her chariot, freezing combatants with a wave of her wand, showcases her tactical use of terror and magical superiority. The turning point comes not from a superior army, but from the disruption of her power source and the arrival of a resurrected hope in the form of Aslan. The battle choreography emphasizes teamwork among the creatures, showing unity as their greatest strength against her force's chaotic, monstrous individualism. Edmund's crucial intervention is the perfect synthesis of his character arc. He uses his knowledge of the witch's methods, gained through painful experience, to execute a plan that requires both cunning and self-sacrifice. Destroying her wand is a symbolic act of breaking the instrument of her tyranny and his own temptation. Her enraged assault on him afterwards is her acknowledgement that he has transformed from a useful idiot into her most effective enemy. His survival, thanks to Lucy's cordial, completes his redemption not through his own death, but through a second chance earned by courage, allowing him to live as a redeemed man rather than a martyred boy. The final confrontation distills the cosmic war into a primal, animalistic clash. The witch, stripped of her army and her wand, fights with the desperate fury of a cornered predator, using a makeshift ice spear. Aslan's victory is swift and decisive, a powerful pounce that ends not with a prolonged struggle, but with an absolute termination. Her shattering into countless icy fragments is the perfect demise, the embodiment of winter dissolving under the force of true, living power. It signifies that her entire existence was an unnatural, fragile construct that could not withstand the enduring solidity of rightful authority. The immediate aftermath focuses on restoration and healing, emphasizing that victory is hollow without compassion. Aslan's gentle revival of Edmund, using the very gift Lucy received from Father Christmas, creates a beautiful narrative circle and underscores the theme that gifts of grace are meant to be passed on. The somber moment honoring the fallen, with Aslan quietly observing the cost, grants the story moral gravity. This ensures the ending is bittersweet, acknowledging that peace is purchased with sacrifice, making the subsequent celebrations feel earned and deeply respectful. The coronation at Cair Paravel is less about gaining titles and more about the world formally recognizing the rulers the children have already become. The ceremony, rich with light and ceremony, is a visual anthem to restored order and beauty. Aslan's silent departure during the festivities is profoundly significant. It marks the transition from dependence on a savior to responsible stewardship by the redeemed. His exit communicates that the ultimate goal of true leadership is to make itself gradually unnecessary, to establish a kingdom that can flourish under the authority it has nurtured and legitimized. The montage of their reign is a vital narrative capsule that fulfills the prophecy in a deeply satisfying, wordless epilogue. We see them not as child rulers playing dress-up, but as mature monarchs administering justice, exploring their realm, and growing into their distinct royal personas. This glimpse of the Golden Age makes Narnia a true home, a place where they lived full, impactful lives. It fundamentally changes the nature of their return to England. They are not children coming back from a day trip, but ancient souls displaced into young bodies, carrying the weight of a lifetime of memories. The hunt for the white stag, a creature of myth offering wishes, serves as the final poetic catalyst for their return. It represents the last spark of Narnian wonder in their reign, a call back to the sense of quest and possibility that first defined their adventure. Chasing this symbol of magic deep into the familiar woods, they inadvertently cross back over the border of their own childhood. The reappearance of the lamppost, now a beacon leading home rather than to adventure, marks the closing of a perfect circle, suggesting that portals between worlds exist in moments of pure, seeking joy. The jarring return to the spare room is a masterful sensory and emotional disruption. The sudden silence, the rough wool of their clothes, the cramped dark space, all violently contrast with the sun-drenched grandeur of Cair Paravel just moments before. The stunned look they share is one of the film's most powerful moments, communicating a loss too profound for words. They are kings and queens trapped in the bodies of schoolchildren, a dislocation that speaks to the universal experience of carrying inner worlds of experience that the outer world cannot see or validate. Their final exchange with the professor provides the essential grace note of understanding and belonging. His immediate, unquestioning belief validates their entire experience and provides a sanctuary for their truth. His knowing smile and his final, wise comment about not expecting to see them again welcome them into a secret fellowship of those who have walked between worlds. This ending does not close the door on Narnia but opens a permanent door in their minds, assuring them, and the audience, that wonder is real, that the journey shaped them forever, and that another adventure might always be waiting just beyond the ordinary. The film's narrative architecture masterfully employs the wardrobe not merely as a portal, but as a symbolic birth canal, a passage from a state of fractured innocence into a realm where moral choices carry monumental weight. This transition recontextualizes the children's wartime trauma, offering a landscape where their internal struggles can be externalized, confronted, and ultimately healed through direct action and sacrifice. The perpetual winter of Narnia serves as a perfect externalization of their own emotional stasis and the global atmosphere of fear and suspension they have evacuated, making their quest to end the winter synonymous with their own psychological thawing and maturation. Their journey thus becomes one of active healing, where saving Narnia becomes the mechanism for saving themselves from bitterness, cynicism, and despair, forging them into individuals capable of ruling not just a kingdom, but their own spirits. The characterization of the White Witch achieves a profound depth by presenting her evil as a perversion of order rather than mere chaos, a tyranny that operates through a twisted, legalistic framework that gives her cruelty a veneer of legitimacy. Her enforcement of the deep magic from the dawn of time reveals her as a consummate literalist, a ruler who understands power only as domination, contract, and the ruthless enforcement of penalty, utterly blind to concepts of mercy, grace, or redemptive love. This makes her not a wild force of nature, but a chillingly intellectual adversary, whose defeat requires not a stronger force of the same kind, but the introduction of an entirely different paradigm of power rooted in voluntary sacrifice. Her shock and dissolution at the resurrection underscores that her entire worldview and authority were built upon a fundamental misunderstanding of reality's deepest laws, rendering her a sovereign of a profound and hollow lie. The transformative arc of the Pevensie children is meticulously individualized, with each sibling's personal flaw becoming the very raw material for their royal virtue through the trials of Narnia. Peter's initial reluctance to lead, born of a fear of failure under the weight of wartime responsibility, is honed into a steadfast, strategic courage that thinks of his people first. Susan's rational skepticism, a defense mechanism against the uncontrollable horrors of war, is beautifully tempered into a wise discernment that learns to believe in the unseen without abandoning her protective nature. Edmund's selfishness and resentment are burned away in the crucible of consequence and forgiveness, forging a loyalty and bravery that is deeply empathetic because it is earned through error. Lucy's unwavering faith, initially a source of sibling dismissal, is vindicated as the essential, guiding light that sustains the group's purpose, her purity of heart protecting her from the cynicism that could have doomed their mission. On a cinematic level, the film's enduring power is anchored in its deliberate pacing and commitment to practical textures, allowing the fantasy to feel weathered, heavy, and authentically inhabited rather than sleekly digital. The careful design of the costumes, weapons, and sets, from the beaver's dam to the stone table, grounds the myth in a tangible reality that the audience can touch and believe, making the more spectacular CGI elements like Aslan feel integrated into a coherent world. Director Andrew Adamson's background in animation is evident in the precise, expressive choreography of the creature performances, where the body language of a worried badger or a noble centaur communicates as much as any line of dialogue. This holistic approach to world-building fosters a deep sense of immersion, making Narnia feel like a discovered place with its own history, ecology, and physics, rather than a series of constructed set pieces existing solely for the protagonist's journey. The story's final resonance lies in its poignant exploration of the relationship between time, memory, and identity, framed through the profound dislocation of returning to childhood after having lived a full adult life as monarchs. Their silent, shared gaze in the spare room speaks of an unbridgeable gulf between their inner experience and outer reality, a melancholy truth about the solitary nature of profound personal transformation. The professor's tacit understanding offers a crucial lifeline, affirming that their journey was real and that they now belong to a secret fellowship of those who have known other worlds, a community that transcends time and space. Thus, the film concludes not with an ending, but with a new beginning in their own world, where they must carry the wisdom of Cair Paravel into the rubble of London, forever changed and forever tasked with ruling their own lives with the justice, courage, and grace they learned as kings and queens. Ultimately, the film transcends its genre as a mere fantasy adventure by presenting a richly layered allegory for spiritual awakening and psychological maturation, where the external quest to liberate a frozen kingdom perfectly mirrors the internal process of overcoming personal winter and emotional stasis. The children's ascent from evacuees to sovereigns charts a universal narrative of discovering latent strength and purpose through trials that demand faith, sacrifice, and the courage to confront profound evil both outside and within themselves. Narnia itself functions as a dynamic crucible for transformation, a realm where abstract virtues like loyalty, repentance, and grace are rendered into tangible actions with immediate and cosmic consequences, thereby making the theological and philosophical underpinnings of the story felt rather than simply explained. This masterful synthesis of spectacular cinema and profound thematic depth ensures the film's enduring legacy as a work that entertains the senses while simultaneously speaking to the soul, inviting successive generations to step through the wardrobe and contemplate the deeper magic written into their own world.